Good afternoon, Miss H here today. I am going to share with you a project that I do with my third graders called CD weaving. And it is a project that involves the use of CDs. Any kind of CD recycled is best. I do not recommend going and buying CDs just for this purpose. But I have lots of people who give me old, these aren't actually old, they're probably usable, but people don't normally record stuff on DVDs anymore. But you probably have parents who have CDs lying around the house, DVDs that they don't watch anymore, and CDs, music that they may not listen to anymore either. Computer software, that's also something you can use. Any sort of CD works just fine. And the reason why it doesn't matter what kind of CD you use is because you're going to be using the shiny side as the front. So whatever's on the back doesn't matter, okay? So that's the cool part about it. So we're gonna be using CDs and then also yarn, okay? And a pair of scissors, okay? That's all you need to complete this project. It's a really fun project that once you sit down and start it, it goes really, really fast. So I will show you what we're gonna do to get started, but like I said, go ahead and get together yourself a CD, yarn, and a pair of scissors, okay? And make sure that you ask your parents if you can use your CD first. Don't just go starting to wrap stuff around CDs that your parents don't know you're doing stuff to. So make sure you ask before you start this project. So I'll see you in just a few. Okay guys, really quickly, I'm gonna show you what I mean when I tell you that I need you to get 2 arms lengths of yarn. For this project, you're gonna need to cut yarn off of the roll. You cannot weave with just a whole roll of yarn. So trying to get the precise amount is the best thing so that you don't have too much and you don't have too little as you are weaving, okay? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna make 2 arms lengths. So what that means is you're gonna take the roll of yarn, hold the end of it in your hand, and you're going to unravel it until your arms are stretched out wide, okay? And so I've got this all the way stretched out wide. So what I'm gonna do is take this hand and grab that part right there, okay? So this is what we consider 2 arms lengths. So now I'm just gonna take my scissors and cut right there at the end of that, okay? So this is pretty much the exact amount, maybe just a little bit more that you're gonna need to do your warp here in just a second on your CD. But then also each time I change colors, this is the amount that I get so that I get enough of that color showing and so that it doesn't waste my time cutting and tying over and over again. Okay guys, so I just showed you how to know how long pieces of yarn you need. So the first step we're gonna do is we're gonna create what is called the warp of your CD. So this is your loom, okay? And the warp is going to be the spokes on a wheel is what it's gonna sort of look like, okay? So these are gonna be the stationary strings, which means the strings that are gonna stay put the whole time. And then you're going to create the weft part, which is going to be the part that you actually weave in and out of your warp strings, okay? So to get started, you're going to take your 2 arms lengths of yarn that you just cut, stick it through the center hole, and then we're going to tie a nice tight knot. So that means you're going to tie once and then tie twice. And you're going to try to get it nice and tight, okay? So then what I like to do is I pull that knot down to the center of my CD and I tuck the little tail underneath and even underneath this part over here to get it out of my way so that I don't get confused with it whenever I'm doing my warp, okay? So now I've got my yarn and I've got it attached here, and all I'm going to do is I am going to wrap it around the outside of the CD and back through the center hole, okay? And you have to be really careful with yarn. If you go too fast with yarn, it can get tangled. It's very temperamental, so you have to be very careful. So something I haven't told you yet is on this part for the warp, you need an odd number of strings. So that means 9, 11, 13, 15, any of those numbers is fine. If you're a beginner, I would definitely start with 9. If you've done this before, maybe you can do 11 or 13 strings, okay? The more strings you have on your warp, the tighter your weaving will be, okay? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Notice how I'm going around in order. I'm not hopping across the CD, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so what I do before I tie it is I count to make sure I'm actually correct on my count. If I am incorrect and I tie it, then it's gonna mess up my weaving, okay? So what I do to count is I put my thumb on number 1. It does not matter which one is number 1. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It does not matter how many you have on the back, so do not count the number on the back. It matters how many you have on the front. So I have an odd number on the front, so I'm good to tie this. So what I'm gonna do is take this little tail that I had at the beginning, and I can cut off some of this if it's a little bit hard to tie with. That is just fine. So I am going to tie these 2 strings together, both of the ends, and we're tying it on the back. Okay, and you're gonna be very careful about trying to tie it nice and tight. So I'm holding my knots. Okay, so this is one of those times when knowing how to tie is a very important skill, okay? So now on the front, I wanna make sure that I evenly space everything because it's easily kind of shiftable right now. If your strings are too loose, what you can do is on the back, you can kind of pull them tight and then put a piece of tape on the back and it will hold them still and keep them tight for you if that's a problem for you, okay? So that is the warp. The next thing we're gonna do is called the weft, okay? That's where you're actually going to weave in and out of your warp strings to create a really cool pattern. So I'm gonna start off with a thicker color just to show you how this goes, okay? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tie it onto any of the strings on the back. And just a single tie is fine. You do not have to do a double tie. And I would tuck that tail in so that it ends up not being in your way. And then you're gonna pull the string through the center so that it is on the front where we're going to be weaving. We are not weaving on the back. The back is the part with the words, okay? So what I do for my students is I tell them to say, and you can do this out loud, we say under skip, okay? So we're gonna start going under a string, skip the next one, under, skip, under, skip, under, and we're gonna pull, okay? So it's a little bit hard to pull because I went a little too far. I'm gonna go back one. What I normally tell my students to do, yeah, that's a little easier, is to do, say under, skip, under, 3 times, okay? So after you've said the word under 3 times, then you can pull it through and then it'll be easier to pull through. If you do that all the way around and forget to pull through, it's gonna get stuck, okay? You noticed how that first time it was a little hard for me to pull through? It's because it went too far, okay? So you've gotta make sure that you remember to pull through every once in a while. So this one was the last one I went under, so I'm skipping this one. So this is my first under, skip, under, skip, under, pull. Okay, so we went under that one, so we skip, under, skip, under, skip, under, pull. Okay, here's a few things to watch out for. You can start to see it, it's starting to weave together, okay? So things to watch out for. As you go around, if you notice that you are doing the same exact movement that you did the first time around, something's wrong. For instance, if I realize that I'm going, let's say that I was going over this string again and under this string, over this one, under this one, and then I pull them and I realize, oh my goodness, I went over this one last time and under this one last time. That must be wrong. It's always got to be opposite of what you did the time before. So if you notice a mistake, you immediately pull out where the mistake was and redo. If you continue with the mistake and ignore it, your weaving will be off, and it will be very noticeable as you start to weave. What will end up happening is these warp strings, the ones that are on top, will be very visible. You're not supposed to be able to see them very well if you're weaving the right way, okay? So you've got to watch out for little mistakes so that you don't end up having an issue as you are weaving, okay? So I'm gonna time lapse this and go ahead and do some quick weaving so you guys can see what it looks like, okay? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to switch colors. And normally I would not allow my students to cut off this much, but I wanna make sure that you know how to switch colors before I go, okay? So I'm going to pull off a little bit of this yarn. Again, you're normally supposed to do 2 arms lengths for each one. And all you do at the end of your first piece of yarn is you're going to tie these together. So you're just gonna tie the 2 ends together into a knot. Okay, and what I like to do is I grab all 4 pieces of yarn and I tug them really tight. If they slide, then tie them again. Okay, because every once in a while there's some really slick yarn that does not like to hold knots. Okay, so notice I'm tugging, nothing is happening. Okay, so that is good. You can cut off a little bit of these tails, but do not get extreme in your trimming of the tails yet. Those can be tucked underneath your weaving as you continue weaving, okay? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take the new end, okay? So this is like a continuous string that's gonna keep on going and going and going as I weave, okay? All right, guys, I'm gonna show you how you can finish off this CD once you get out to the edge. So in my classroom, what I always say is that you need to go out till you're about at pinky width, which means the outside edge of your pinky can touch the outside of the CD and at the same time touch the yarn. So this is about pinky width, so you still have a little bit of that real shiny CD showing, okay? So I'm at the end of my yarn, so all I'm gonna do is take this yarn and tie it around that last piece and then cut off my tail, okay? So what you're gonna do for all these little knots that are still showing is you're gonna tuck them, you're gonna hide them, okay? So what I do is I take the knot and I kind of pull it out and find where it goes between what 2 colors, and then I shove it down in the yarn, or down in the weaving, okay? And all that does is it hides your knots so that people are not able to see that you had knots in your weaving, and you can't see the transfer between colors. All you see is that they changed colors, and that's what's cool about it, is that it's very easy to clean up, okay? So I'm gonna show you something cool that you can do with this to finish it off. You can leave it just like this because it looks really fun just as it is, or you can do something to make it even more fun. So I have these pieces of yarn, these real thick yarn. But what I'm gonna do is tie just a real simple single knot like this, and then I'm gonna fray, which means I'm gonna kind of pull it apart because it's such a thick yarn that it's gonna be sort of like a fringe on the outside of the CD. All right, guys, here is the finished product. Looks like a sun, doesn't it? Isn't that so fun? So I just finished putting all these little extra pieces of yarn on the outside just by tying them on and then fraying the ends of them. And like I said, you can do this with any yarn, but the thicker yarn is really easy to do. I feel like this guy needs a little hair trim. Yeah, needs a little haircut. Okay, so you can do that to finish off your CD if you want. You can even add like a hanger on there just by tying a piece of yarn on the back from one strand to another one. That's a fun way to finish this off as well. So this is a super fun project. Again, another fiber project. I love doing stuff with yarn. It's really soothing, I think, to use yarn and play with yarn. And there's a lot of cool things you can do with it. So this is something that you can play with just a simple recycled CD, a roll of yarn, and a pair of scissors. And then lots of skills with tying with your hands, right? So I hope you guys try this out. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope to see some pictures of some finished products. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.